dispatching about a call. Respond with the police. 4747 Summer Street. Female party jumped off the top floor of the house in the suicide attempt. 1812.
It's unknown where the knife is, or whatever she used to slit her. She's in the... Looks like they're pinging around the back. We'll get that info now.
I'm going to get all 3 mutual aids at this time. I'm getting you 3 mutual aid ambulances. I struck the box. We got 3 on the way. But yeah, I got 1 here. I got 4 patients total. 7 Summer Street. 30 ambulance in for a suicidal situation. Time of the week.
As the sun set on January 24th, 2023, Patrick Clancy, a father of 3, rushed back to his home in Duxbury, Massachusetts after a brief errand. But what he found there was something out of a nightmare. His wife, Lindsay, lay severely injured in the backyard, and their children, aged 5, 3, and 8 months, were unresponsive in the basement. The entire town was in shock as the news of the tragedy spread like wildfire. And in the investigation that unraveled, the truth was more disturbing than anyone could have ever imagined. What could have possibly happened in that short span of time when Patrick was away? And what secrets were hiding behind the closed doors of the Clancy household? Hi, and welcome back to Mysterious 7, friends. Today, we're looking at the disturbing case of Lindsey Clancy. But first, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please consider hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon below. So, without any further ado, let's dive right into this mystery. Duxbury, Massachusetts is a small coastal town located about 35 miles southeast of Boston. With a population of just about 16,000 residents, Duxbury is known for its charming New England-style homes and historic landmarks. The town also boasts a number of beautiful parks and recreation areas, including Duxbury Beach, where residents and visitors can enjoy swimming, fishing, and boating. Overall, Duxbury is a charming and idyllic town that offers something for everyone. Whether you're interested in history, outdoor recreation, or the arts, there's plenty to see and do in this picturesque coastal community. And it's here that our story begins. In 2016, Patrick and Lindsey Clancy tied the knot in a beautiful ceremony that left everyone in awe. Fast forward to 2 years later in 2018, the couple took a leap of faith and purchased a charming home on 47 Summer Street in Duxbury, Massachusetts. It was the start of a new chapter in their lives. As their love bloomed, so did their family. In the space of 6 years, the couple were blessed with 3 beautiful children. In 2018, they welcomed their firstborn, a delightful girl they named Cora. And 2 years later, their family grew with the arrival of a bouncing baby boy named Dawson. But that wasn't the end. On May 26, 2022, the Clancys welcomed their newest bundle of joy, a baby boy named Callan. The Clancys' children were a beautiful blend of unique personalities, and their journey together was nothing short of enchanting. Cora, for instance, was a beautiful girl with a heart of gold. She dreamed of being a doctor and a mother someday, and often practiced by giving her little brother Callan checkups, which melted her parents' hearts. Dawson, the second-born, had bold brown eyes that sparkled with warmth and friendship. He had a natural talent for humor and was incredibly generous, always willing to share his toys with others. The youngest of the Clancy bunch, Callan, was the epitome of a happy baby. From the moment he was born, he hardly ever fussed and was always smiling. His parents affectionately nicknamed him Happy Callan because of this. Lindsay and Patrick were the ultimate parenting duo, with a deep love and devotion to their children that knew no bounds. Lindsay was the embodiment of motherhood, paying close attention to every little detail when it came to her kids. As a labor and delivery nurse at Massachusetts General Hospital, Lindsay was no stranger to caring for others, but her passion for her children knew no bounds. Her love for them was evident in everything she did, from working out while carrying her little ones to pushing Dawson in his stroller while Cora pedaled her tricycle beside her. Every moment spent with her children was precious to her, and she savored every second. Patrick was no less dedicated to his family. He was a businessman and had a home office in the basement of the family house. But despite his busy schedule, he was always eager to take his kids on adventures and explore the world with them. From scooting through the park to skiing down the slopes, nothing was too big or small for this loving father. He knew that his children were his purpose in life, and he never took that responsibility for granted. Watching them grow and thrive was a true joy for him, and he knew that his love for them would only continue to grow with each passing day. For a while, life seemed to be going perfectly for the Clancy family. They were happy, healthy, and filled with love. But all of that was about to change in an instant when tragedy struck without warning. On the morning of January 24th, 2023, the world was coated in a pristine blanket of snow. Lindsay and her daughter Cora were up early for Cora's pediatrician appointment. Lindsay, who'd been on maternity leave since her youngest son, Callan, was born, was eager to ensure that her daughter was in perfect health. After their appointment, Lindsay and Cora returned home and joined Dawson outside in the snow. They giggled and played in the snow and built a magnificent snowman. Lindsay captured the moments through pictures, sharing the joy with her mom and husband. The day quickly went by, and as the afternoon set in, Lindsay began to think about dinner plans. She searched online for the driving time to the 3V, a restaurant in Plymouth. Later, at 4:47 p.m., she phoned CVS Pharmacy in Kingston to inquire about children's Miralax, a laxative medication for kids. Unfortunately, the manager informed her that they didn't have it in stock, but suggested some alternatives. As she got off the phone with the pharmacy, she texted her husband Patrick, who was working in his home office in the basement, asking if he wanted to order takeout for dinner. He agreed, and she quickly placed an order for a Mediterranean power bowl for herself and a scallop and pork belly risotto for him. She also asked him to pick up the kids' medication on his way back. At 5:10 p.m., the order was placed, and a few minutes later, Patrick headed out to pick up the takeout and medication. As the clock struck 5:33 p.m., Patrick pulled into the CVS Pharmacy parking lot in Kingston. He rushed to the children's aisle and reached for his phone to call Lindsay and confirm the medication they needed, but there was no answer. A minute later, Lindsay called back and was able to confirm what he was to get. He picked up the food, and the Mediterranean power bowl and scallop and pork belly risotto filled his senses. He couldn't wait to get back home to enjoy the meal with his family. But as he drove back home, blissfully unaware of the tragedy unfolding, he had no idea that his life was about to change forever. As Patrick pulled into the driveway of his home, he couldn't help but notice the eerie silence that hung in the air. There were no sounds of laughter or giggles from his kids, which was highly unusual. His heart racing, he quickly got out of the car and made his way to the house. As he stepped inside, he called out for his wife and children, but there was no response. The emptiness of the house made him feel like he had entered a horror movie set. He began to ascend the stairs, his heart beating faster and faster with each step. When he reached their second-floor bedroom, he found the door locked. This made him suspicious, and his mind raced with thoughts of what could have happened. He jiggled the handle of the door a few times, but it wouldn't budge. Growing impatient and scared, he eventually forced the door open, and his eyes fell upon a gruesome sight. The floor was covered in blood, and the window was wide open, flapping in the breeze. Fear gripped his heart. A quick glance outside the window, and his worst fears were confirmed. Lindsay was lying motionless on the ground 20 feet below. It was a scene straight out of a nightmare. As he stumbled out of the bedroom and rushed to the backyard, his mind was in a frenzy. He found his wife lying broken on the ground with blood pooling around her wrists. His heart sank at the sight, but he was relieved to see that she was still breathing and conscious. When he asked her what had happened, she told him to his surprise that she'd tried to kill herself and jumped out of the bedroom window. Patrick's mind went into overdrive. How could this be happening? He quickly dialed 911 and
Sorry, dispatching a medical call. Respond with the police. 4747 Summer Street. Female party jumped off the top floor of the house and was suicide attempt 12-18-12.
It's unknown where the knife is, or whatever she used to slit her. She's in the... Looks like they're pinging around the back. We'll get that info now.
I'm going to get all 3 mutual aids at this time. I'm getting you 3 mutual aid ambulance cabs. I struck the box. We got 3 on the way. Look, I got 1 I got 4 patients total. 7 Summer Street. 30 ambulance in for a suicidal situation. Time of
Explained the situation to the operator. As he waited for the ambulance, he wondered where their children were. Lindsay informed him that they were in the basement. Patrick's heart raced as he sprinted down to the basement, his worst fears coming to life before his eyes. He shouted out for his beloved children, Cora, Callan, and Dawson, but there was no response. As he reached the den area, his heart sank. The sight before him was unimaginable. The children lay motionless on the ground with exercise bands wrapped tightly around their necks. Patrick's hands shook as he frantically tried to remove the bands, begging his children to breathe. But it appeared to be too late. The children had been strangled and were not responding. The weight of the tragedy was too much for him to bear. The sound of sirens in the distance jolted Patrick out of his despair. Officers and paramedics arrived and immediately took over, loading the children into ambulances and rushing them to Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital, Plymouth. Meanwhile, Lindsay was also transported to South Shore Hospital in Weymouth for treatment. The clock ticked as Patrick waited for news concerning his family. His heart was heavy with grief and fear as they prayed for his children's survival. However, at 7:28 p.m., his world came crashing down when the doctors delivered the devastating news that Cora and Dawson had passed away. His heart shattered into a million pieces, and Patrick struggled to come to terms with the tragedy that had befallen his family. But amidst the darkness, a glimmer of hope emerged. Callan, miraculously, was still fighting for his life. The doctors were able to revive him, and he was quickly transported by medical flight to the Boston Children's Hospital. Though he was in critical condition, the medical team continued to work tirelessly to save his life. Patrick clung on to the hope that his youngest child would pull through the nightmare and bring light back to his shattered world. On the 25th of January 2023, which was the day after the heartbreaking event, the authorities issued an arrest warrant for Lindsay on multiple charges, including 2 counts of homicide and 3 counts of strangulation. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that Lindsay had played a role in the murder of her own children. The news shook the entire community to its core. People couldn't comprehend how a mother who seemed so normal could take the lives of her own children. Amidst the chaos, Lindsay remained unconscious in the hospital, unable to explain the motive behind her actions. The once peaceful town continued to grieve for the innocent lives lost and struggled to come to terms with the reality of what had transpired. The morning of January 27, 2023 was a dark one, as little Callan's fight for life came to a heartbreaking end at 11:18 a.m. Despite the valiant efforts of the medical staff at Boston Children's Hospital, the 8-month-old had suffered permanent brain damage. His tiny body could not withstand the damage inflicted by the exercise band around his neck. It was a tragedy that shook the entire community to its core. Meanwhile, Lindsay, who'd been unconscious for days, finally opened her eyes. Although she was intubated, she used a whiteboard to communicate her thoughts. Her body had suffered immense damage from the fall, and she was paralyzed from the waist down. But even in her vulnerable state, the authorities did not hesitate to press charges against her. The evidence was overwhelming, and there was no escaping the truth. The road to justice for the tragic events of January 24th was just beginning. Patrick finally found the courage to speak up on January 28th, 2023. His heart-wrenching post on the family's GoFundMe page left a lump in the throats of thousands who read it. Devastated and shattered by the loss of his precious children, Cora, Dawson, and Callan, he poured out his heart in the post. He talked about the unimaginable pain and shock he was going through, and how he felt completely lost without his children, who were the essence of his life. Despite everything, he found it in his heart to forgive Lindsay and asked others to do the same. He also reminded everyone that the real Lindsay was generously loving and caring towards everyone. Following the post, the outpouring of support and love for Patrick and his family was immense, with people from all over the world donating to the family's medical bills, funeral services, and legal help. On February 6, 2023, Lindsay made a phone call to her husband in the presence of Dr. Paul Ziesel, a renowned psychologist who had been hired by her lawyer to assess her mental state. In that call, she made a shocking confession that left everyone stunned. Lindsay revealed that after Patrick had left their home on January 24th, she'd experienced a moment of psychosis and heard voices in her head. She claimed that a man's voice had instructed her to take the lives of her precious children and to end her own life, as it was her last chance to do so. The gravity of her words left Patrick and the psychologist speechless, and the implications of her confession left them with a lot to contemplate. The shocking truth behind why Lindsay had committed such a terrible crime was revealed after a thorough mental evaluation. It was discovered that she'd been struggling with postpartum depression. Becoming a mother is often viewed as one of the most joyous experiences in a woman's life. However, this isn't always the case. Postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis are two conditions that can arise after giving birth, and they can be incredibly challenging to navigate. Postpartum depression is a form of clinical depression that affects mothers after childbirth. It can be caused by hormonal changes, lack of sleep, and stress. Symptoms may include feelings of sadness, hopelessness, and difficulty in sleeping. Postpartum psychosis, on the other hand, is a rare but severe condition that occurs in about 1 to 2 out of every 1,000 births. It's characterized by delusions, hallucinations, and confusion. Women with a history of bipolar disorder or schizophrenia are at a higher risk of developing postpartum psychosis. Both conditions require prompt medical attention to ensure the safety and well-being of both mother and baby. In the months leading up to the tragedy, Lindsay had sought help from psychiatrists due to overwhelming feelings of anxiety and depression. Despite being diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, she continued to struggle with her mental health and was prescribed a staggering 13 different psychiatric medications to manage her symptoms. These included powerful drugs such as clonazepam, Valium, Prozac, sertraline, and lorazepam, all of which had significant side effects and potential risks. Despite her husband Patrick's account that she took these drugs as prescribed, Lindsay shared with them in December 2022 that she was having thoughts of harming their children. On January 1, 2023, Lindsay checked herself into McLean Hospital in Massachusetts. After being admitted, she was taken off some medication and put on others before being discharged on January 5th. In the following weeks, her husband Patrick inquired if she was still having thoughts, and Lindsay responded that she was not. As all these details about Lindsay's mental health emerged, it became clear that her actions might have been as a result of her struggles with postpartum depression. This would later be a key factor in her defense in court. As the camera zoomed in on Lindsay's pale face, she looked almost unrecognizable with a neck brace and mask covering most of her features. It was Tuesday, the 7th of February, 2023, and Lindsay was lying paralyzed in a hospital bed as she appeared for a virtual arraignment via Zoom. This was the first time the public had seen her since the tragic deaths of her children. As the court proceedings began, both Lindsay's defense attorney, Kevin Reddington, and the prosecutors were in agreement that her family knew of her worsening depression and unsettling thoughts following the birth of her son Callan in May 2022. Following this, Reddington argued that Lindsay had been suffering from postpartum depression and possibly postpartum psychosis, but prosecutors refuted the claim.
She never indicated that she was hallucinating, delusional, or had disordered thoughts or speech.
The exchange was tense, with both sides trying to prove their point. In a shocking turn of events, prosecutors revealed that Lindsay had been keeping notes on her phone about her feelings.
She wrote in her journal that at times she had ideation in December of 2022, and she also told her husband that she had thoughts and on one occasion had thoughts of harming her children. But she did not write or voice those thoughts after a stay at McLean Hospital. When she had those thoughts, she consulted with a psychiatrist and with her husband, and then she committed herself to McLean Hospital on January 1st, 2023. She was discharged by the hospital on January 5th, 2023, and the hospital did not file any paperwork at that time attempting to have her committed as a danger to herself or others.
The revelation left everyone in the courtroom speechless, shedding light on the extent of Lindsay's mental struggles. Prosecutors also made another shocking revelation about Lindsay's state of mind after her children's death. They stated that 3 days after the incident, while still intubated and barely conscious, Lindsay reportedly scribbled a note saying she needed an attorney. Prosecutors pointed out this was one of the first things she asked about, suggesting that she was fully aware of her actions and their consequences. In their view, this showed that Lindsay was not suffering from a complete lack of mental capacity, but rather acted with a degree of intentionality. Due to this, prosecutors further argued that the murders of Lindsay's children were not impulsive acts, but had been meticulously planned.
The defendant did not take advantage of the situation when her husband left the home that night. She created the situation, and she used Apple Maps to make sure she would have enough time to strangle each child before her husband returned from where she had sent him. The defendant is a danger to herself and others. She planned these murders, gave herself the time and privacy needed to commit the murders, and then she strangled each child in the place where they should have felt the safest, at home with their mom.
The evidence came from her phone records, which showed the searches she made on the day of the murders. The air was thick with tension as Lindsay's defense attorney, Reddington, rose to address the court. He argued that the murders of Lindsay's 3 young children were not premeditated, but rather a tragic result of the country's failure to properly address the mental health needs of new mothers. Reddington painted a vivid picture of a woman who was failed by the medical professionals who were supposed to help her. He pointed out that Lindsay was prescribed a cocktail of medications that did more harm than good, leaving her unable to experience genuine emotions.
We all know that this woman is, as counsel concedes apparently, a danger to herself. I question whether she would ever make it to a trial. She's extremely emotional. However, she's unable, and has been unable, to express any happiness or sadness or cry. And in fact, sometime about a month or 2 ago, she made the comment, "I just wish that I could feel something."
The drugs had left her in such a state that she was now under 24/7 suicide watch. The defense attorney's words were met with mixed reactions in the courtroom. Some nodded in agreement, while others seemed skeptical of his claims. As the courtroom proceedings continued, a wave of letters of support for Lindsay flooded in, telling stories of their own struggles with postpartum depression and rallying to her defense. From old friends to complete strangers, each letter vouched for her character, slamming her extensive list of medications and expressing their firm belief that Lindsay could not have been responsible for the death of her 3 beloved children. The letters carried a common thread of empathy and understanding towards the struggles that women face during and after pregnancy, and a collective call to arms for the need for more resources and support for women suffering from postpartum depression. As the courtroom drama continued, the prosecution made it clear that they were not buying Lindsay's attorney's defense strategy. They strongly rejected the idea that she was a mere victim of excessive medication and antidepressants. With the stakes high, they pushed for her to be kept in custody without bail. The judge, however, ruled that Lindsay would remain in the undisclosed hospital, where she'd been since the day she allegedly killed her 3 children. Lindsay's fate now rests in the hands of a grand jury who will decide whether she should be charged with murder. The suspense is palpable as everyone awaits the decision. Her next court date is on July 25th, 2023, and it remains to be seen what the future holds for this tragic case. The case of Lindsey Clancy and the tragic deaths of her 3 children has left many questions unanswered. It is indeed a heartbreaking and complex situation that has shaken the community. As we reflect on this case, it raises important questions about mental health, the postpartum period, and the support available for women who are struggling. What more can be done to ensure that women receive the help they need during this vulnerable time? And how can we prevent tragedies like this from happening in the future? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Stay safe, and thanks for watching.